protest against the things that Obama is going to be doing. I mean, we've got to look ahead now to this period of the 20th of January, the inauguration, till about May 1st.
Okay, I want to do that.
The 100 days to fascism.
But I want to put bookends on the discussion of the shadow government roundtable group, governor general, maritime or administrative law system that the British Imperium, the Anglo-American establishment is using. Finish up breaking down how this shadow government operates in the Commonwealths, how they're trying through executive to set one up here and across Europe again. And finish up, because that's key, how they're doing this, because they're under attack. They're losing their power. They have, gotten into a crisis. And then let's get into Mumbai and then into Obama.
Just in terms of the British system is a copy of the Venetian system. The British monarch is the doge, or in this case, the female doge of the entire oligarchy, and this was copied. The French model of a monarchy is a little bit different, right? Something like Louis XIV. That's absolutism, and that's a step beyond, although that also has positive features that the
That's
British...
divine right of kings.
Yeah, pretty much. And that was tried in England. That was tried by James I and Charles I. And as you mentioned before, Charles I got his head cut off back in about 1640. And since then, you've had these things, the rise of the Whig Party, the English Whig Party, or the great nobility, who are about equal to the king, and the king or the monarch becomes a spokesperson for that group. So the British model is the monarch expresses the collective will of the oligarchy. Now, there have been times...
And they only ceded power because of 1215 and then other struggles in 1640 when they found that the middle class, the upper middle class, the gentry continued to overthrow the monarchy, so the two interbred and combined forces.
Yeah, well, the outcome of all that process, and it's a complicated one, is that by 1688, right, by the so-called Glorious Revolution, you have the oligarchy in England putting in William of Orange, right, William and Mary, and that's a Venetian doge system where the oligarchy picks the king, gets rid of one king, right, gets rid of James II, brings in William and Mary, and from about 1688 to 1832, you've got this perfect oligarchy, and it's gotten, they've had some rocky times since. The one example that you want to point to, King Edward VII is an example of somebody who really did combine in himself this kind of power, because he had been the Prince of Wales under Queen Victoria. So that meant he had about 50 or 60 years where the mother was the queen. He called her my eternal mother. She never decided to leave the scene. So the Prince of Wales, Edward VII, created this unparalleled network, and he created the alliance system that brought on World War I. In other words, if you wanted to say one person who did most to cause World War I, that would be King Edward VII, because he created this triple entente, right, to crush Germany between Russia, France, and the British, and even he detached Italy from the German-Austrian coalition. So this is a very, very evil institution, and with the British monarchy, you're getting very close to the heart of power in the world. Again, not so much that the Queen embodies this power in herself, but that she represents the City of London, the court, the Foreign Office, the worldwide networks, the Commonwealth, right, the Royal Bank of Canada.
She is the spokesperson.
Yeah, and she's the delegated, she's the chairman of the board, maybe, and also spokesperson.
And it's the same thing in the Netherlands with the Queen there as well, who are also intermarried, into that same family.
Right, and that's the monument to that is this tremendous conglomerate, Royal Dutch Shell, which really is, it's Anglo-Dutch. And this is the heart of the oil
50% British,
cartel.
50% Dutch.
Right, and there we had somebody like Sir Henry Detterding in the 1920s and 30s, who was a big supporter of Hitler.
And that went back to 300 years previously when they merged the Dutch East India with the British East India.
Right, and this 1688 that I just mentioned,
Yes.
and it's bringing in William of Orange, and there was William, the King of Holland, the stadtholder or king or whatever they called him, to bring him in and also become King of England.
And he was brought in out of Germany.
And then go against Louis XIV.
Here's a question. I mean, I've studied this quite a bit, but you probably know more, obviously. Was it just there had been so much interbreeding with the original Normans and the French and others that the British line were having trouble having children? Is that why? Because they had all those little states in Germany? How did the German royal line, which hadn't been dominant previously, end up populating all the major royal thrones by 1750?
Well, I would say maybe a little bit later. A lot of these people are the
Germans were controlled by 1700.
The nieces and nephews of Queen Victoria. That's again, Edward VII was known as the uncle of Europe because all of the Tsar of Russia was his nephew. The German Kaiser was his nephew.
The Austrians, they had blood there.
Yeah, but the big thing is that Queen Victoria had a lot of children, and the intermarriage there meant that you have a kind of a merger of many or most of the European royal houses with the British one, because the British, of course, had they had naval supremacy, they had financial supremacy, they had kind of a pecking order supremacy. I mean, the Kaiser Wilhelm, poor guy, Emperor William II of Germany, was obsessed with the idea that Edward VII of England was, much more prestigious and much more, he had much greater rank in the world oligarchical, universe than he did. So it's basically a united thing, and that's what you see today. But again, what the Queen is representing here is a decision that comes from the City of London. It comes from the Toronto financial district. It comes really from Wall Street too, because there are a lot of people there who are sort of dual, loyalty people. Looking to the British as the homeland. Also notice that the $700 billion bailout that we fought against and tried to stop, and there was still
which is now $8.4 trillion.
Right. That was a British model bailout. In other words, the whole idea from that came from Gordon Brown, Alistair Darling,
they admit that he's
and Mervyn King. He was the big inspiration of that. Now we've got a funny situation. If you look at Citibank got $25 billion, I think, under the first round of the bailout, the Gordon Brown British model bailout, and began to go bankrupt a second time, right? So now Citibank had to get a second bailout. This one was done under the Swiss model. This was done under the bad bank model, where you create this separate bank and put all the toxic derivatives into that one.
And then throw it overboard.
And now they're going to go bankrupt again. So what do you do when they go bankrupt for the third time? You've tried the British model, it failed. You tried the Swiss model. I think it's clear Citibank is a candidate for Chapter 11 reorganization and wipe out the derivatives.
Let me digress, and then we'll get more into the bailout, the banker takeover, and then move into Mumbai, because I want to spend time on that, and then Obama coming up in the next hour. Isn't it extremely dangerous? I mean, they don't do this a lot, to have the Queen go ahead and come right out in the open and basically show Canadians and the world that these Commonwealths are really governed by the shadow government, and that their parliaments do serve basically at the pleasure and as ceremonial legates?
It's dangerous, and the question, though, is who's going to do something about it? Now, you have this left-wing thing called the New Democratic Party. Are they going to do anything? How about it, New Democrats? Are you going to fight for some notion of rule of law?
Yeah, that's the question. Why is the Queen and Harper going after the Liberals?
I think it's a combination of two things. It's on the one side the idea that they think that nobody will fight. Is there a Canadian Trade Union Federation? Are there Quebecois? How about the Quebecois? How about the
Will the Canadian media tell people what this is, what they're seeing?
Yeah, it's that's unlikely, but there might be, again, what the challenge is, if somebody pulls a coup d'etat, this is a cold coup by the Queen.
Yeah, it's a coup.
The only answer to a cold coup of any kind is an open-ended nationwide general strike.
And there should be a million Canadians right now protesting in Ottawa.
Right, and that should be a general strike. In other words, shut it down. The model for all this stuff is the Kapp Putsch in Germany in 1921. A group of sort of proto-fascist civil servants and officers took over the government. There's this guy Kapp. And the answer to that was the Social Democratic Party and the trade unions said, we're shutting it all down. Nothing moves.
And Hitler tried that with the Munich Putsch a few years later.
Right, that's a second attempt at the Kapp Putsch. But the Kapp Putsch is a case where they actually did seize the government in Berlin and then had to give it up because the ruling elite got scared and they said, oh my God, somebody's fighting. We better back off and we'll try again another day.
Because they understand something that causes random explosions could be dangerous to them.
Right, but in this case, they had organization which we don't have, and we don't have a social democratic party or anything like it. We don't have a trade union.
We don't have a real liberal arm. It's all infiltrated.
Well, we don't have mass organizations, right? That's the biggest thing is there's a complete atomization of the U.S.
Well, that's infiltration by the left gatekeepers and by the right gatekeepers into any organization. I mean, if we try to have a meeting of 200 people, a provocateur shows up and tries to cause a problem. So that gets into the whole other area of the science of dealing with them and throwing them out. around. I mean, I let very few in my office because I've had folks show up randomly, with a videotape and then try to claim we did something to them, and then run around. And there's major COINTELPRO in this town, Webster.
Well, the